We are in Washington, D.C. with about 275 Arizona high school students. It is a program from an organization called Close Up, and it is Civics Matters Arizona. And these kids have been going through a very strict curriculum as it pertains to civics all across the state of Arizona. And the top 275 in an essay contest are chosen, flying out on the Arizona Cardinals team plane and learning and engaging in civics discussions, real issue discussions with their peers, while seeing all of these things in Washington, D.C. And while we are here wanting to talk to the legislators from our state, another one we're privileged to have with us once again, Senator Ruben Gallego. Senator, thanks for doing this again.
Yeah, Mike, thank you for doing that program, too. It sounds like a really cool program.
It is absolutely incredible. We had Congressman Ciscomani spoke to the group last night, and he talked about his foundation and his motivation to get involved in the government process. At the kickoff, Governor Hobbs was there before we left Sky Harbor Airport, and she talked about being involved in something called Girls State. They also have Boys State, which is a civics organization.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking. Yeah, so I want to ask you that. What were your motivations? What motivated you to enter into public service?
Really it was the war, the Iraq War. Coming back from the war, I was really anti-Iraq War, largely because of, I thought it was a legal war, and two, because the way that we were treated while we were there. And then coming back, not having the kind of the VA services that a lot of us thought we would have. Some of the guys ended up homeless. I lost friends to suicide. A lot of us didn't receive PTSD treatment. I didn't receive PTSD treatment for a while just because the VA wasn't ready for us. And it's all that really is what got me to drive to actually get involved. And ever since then, I've always been involved, no matter what elected position, on veterans and veterans issues.
And I think that is such a noble cause. I'm a Gold Star brother myself, and so my family knows the cost of war. And I also have been working on, as much as someone in my position can do, on exposure and talking about veterans issues. But when you're the one that actually... But you're the one that has to make the decisions, and you have to debate people that may be in opposition or not feel as strongly as you. That's the part of this, is how do you have that civil debate with people where you can be disagreeable, or you can disagree but not be disagreeable?
Well, most of the time when it comes around to veterans issues, my colleagues that I disagree with, sometimes on the right side, but sometimes even on the left side, to be honest, I think at the core that they're all good Americans. I really do believe that. They really do believe that what they're doing is going to help veterans, and that and we just don't see eye to eye. So it's easy for me to disagree with them as long as I know that they're good Americans and they care about veterans. And I'm just, I will just have to continue doing the fight. And if we don't agree, then I'll live to fight another day on another issue that hopefully we can find alignment with.
So one that's been very contentious, obviously, is this big, beautiful bill that narrowly passed the House of Representatives. The Senate has it. Obviously, you're taking it up in debate. It's not something that's going to survive as is, but do you think there is going to be room enough for compromise in this, that something will get done with this that you can send back to the House and they can then take a further look?
I think what's largely going to happen is this is going to be an entirely Republican bill, and for a couple of reasons why. In order for them to extend these tax cuts, especially the ones that are a little loaded more to the top, they have to cut Medicaid, and that's nothing that I can support, right? If this is a move to actually find ways to find savings, to root out corruption, then we could do that in other ways. You're cutting food stamps, right? You're cutting like the free lunch program that I had growing up for me and my three sisters. And it's one of those things that, like, at my core, I just can't get myself to vote for something like that, where I know it's going to significantly hurt people, and not just the people that are on Medicaid, but I've been traveling the state, Mike, and I went to Republican rural Arizona. Those areas, 30% of their patients are on Medicaid, and if we take away Medicaid from a lot of their patients, some of these hospitals are just not going to have enough paying clients that they're just going to end up shutting down, right? So this bill is unbalanced in that regard. And then lastly, it's right now, last I saw, it was about $2.5 trillion that they're going to borrow on that. So what you're going to end up doing is having less people or fewer people getting covered on insurance, and they're going to end up having higher interest rates, which is going to be very difficult as it is because, as you know, the average mortgage in Arizona is about 7.6%. I think if we borrow another 2.5 trillion, and this is just talking to some people in the business world, you're going to see our mortgage rates go higher, and it's going to be more expensive to borrow money. It's going to be more expensive to start a business. All these things, I think, are going to end up slowing down the economy.
And so we just had a conversation with Congressman Ciscomani just 30 minutes ago, and what he said was that they're not cutting people off of Medicaid, that what's happening is they are putting in work requirements for able-bodied people, that they have to be doing something, whether it's working or volunteering or going to school, and that it's going to remove people that should not be on this. But as far as cuts to the people that deserve and are owed Medicaid, it's not going to cut any of them. So somewhere there is, I'm not calling anybody a liar, but there's somewhere in there's a disconnect.
No,
you know what I'm saying? There's a
Yeah,
disconnect, and I think most Americans just want to understand why two sides can look at the same bill.
Well, and so when in doubt, you should always go to the nonpartisan assessment from the Congressional Budget Office. The Congressional Budget Office has said very clearly that this is going to kick off 13 million Americans across the country. Combination of people on Medicaid, as well as because they're not going to continue some of the Affordable Health Care Act subsidies, millions of people are not going to be able to afford health insurance, right? This is not an organization that's run by Democrats. It's not an organization that's run by Republicans. It's an organization that's run by nonpartisan people. The person at the head of it was appointed under George Herb Walker Bush. So this is somebody that is telling us exactly what's going to happen. It's the business community, right? The left-leaning Chamber of Commerce is saying that this is bad for Medicaid and bad for our hospital systems, right? It is rural hospitals and rural elected officials, largely Republicans, are also saying this is bad. So you don't have to believe me, and you don't have to believe Ciscomani. But I think if you go and start asking other people that are outside the elected officials, they would tell you this is a problem. And it's not that Ciscomani, I think, wants to do something mean, but in fact, the consequences are severe. And still, someone has to explain to me, how are we going to deal with the $2.5 trillion added to the debt, while also, again, as interest rates are going higher, and then a potential tariff war on the horizon? That just does not equate a good economy for Arizona and for the rest of the country.
I would say that I agree with you on the debt part of things, that the big concern for any American that's paying attention is $36 trillion in accumulated debt with more on the horizon is not a good direction. You couldn't do it in your private life. So in your opinion, how do you address the American debt issue? And I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth, not go back to raising taxes on Americans. How do we address the debt issue without hurting anybody in the country?
Oh, no. I mean, honestly, if we really want to deal with the debt issue and bring us more in alignment and to get us into a healthy spot, I do think we're going to have to raise taxes and cut. I think that's the only way you're going to do this. I think for people from the Democratic perspective, they need to start understanding that more and more of our discretionary budget is now getting eaten up by paying interest on the debt. So the idea of us having these programs that we want to help working class America are going to be less and less existent. For the business community, our government bonds are becoming more and more expensive, which means it's going to be harder to borrow money for you to expand your business, expand your business, or buy a house. And so we are going to have to at some point be responsible adults, Democrats and Republicans. I think we're going to have to do it sooner rather than later, or else we're going to find ourselves in a very bad position in terms of the economy. And we're going to have to say that everyone's going to have to, take a bite, raise some taxes, cut some smartly in some government programs, and when I say some, a lot, but do it smartly without, having full impact. And then at the same time, figure out how to grow the economy. Those are the three things you do. And you have to stick to it, right? You can't. This is not going to take 1 year. It won't take an effect in 1 year. You have to do it over 10 years in order for us, I think, to get the country on the right track when it comes to our public debt.
Senator, it's always a pleasure. I appreciate you coming on and talking with us, and I look forward to doing it again.
Thank you, buddy. You have a good one. Enjoy D.C.
Thank you so much. That is Senator Ruben Gallego spending a few moments with us.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch and listen to the new season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.